We're just going to have some fun tonight. I'm going to tell some stories. myself and some humorous things that have happened to myself. And you know, when me and my wife were on our way up here, she says, well, how long are you going to speak? And I said, well, you know, I'm just going to talk until I see people yawning or I run out of stories. So whatever happens first, we'll go for that. So I want to talk about how I first ended up in the Midwest or in the Northwest, and I started racing super modifieds at West Capitol Raceway in Sacramento, and I was driving for a man named Ed Watson, and we had heard about the Dirt Cup, and I always wanted to race other racetracks against other racers and race against the best there was. So I talked him into coming up to the Dirt Cup. Well, it took a lot of talking, and finally one day he called me up and he says, it's the middle of the week, and he says, all right, here's the deal. He says, we were racing super modified, and we had a fuel tank. And the tanks were kind of square. They weren't like the sprint cars down, kind of an L shape. It was about this wide and about this tall. He says, here's the deal. He says, you go get that fuel tank out of the car, and you get somebody to weld it up because it had a crack in it and it was leaking fuel, which is never a good thing. And so he says, you get on it and get that done. Well, first thing I had to get on was my motorcycle because that was the only thing I had at that time. So I get on my 750 Honda, I ride over to the shop and I unbolt the tank out of the race car. I find a couple of bungee cords and bungee corded it to the back of my motorcycle. It took up so much room, I was kind of sitting up over the tank, and the bungee cords wouldn't really hold the tank on the bike anyway, so I had to hold on to it with one hand to steady it. So that meant you only had one hand on the handlebars. So I had to let go of the tank to grab the clutch to take off, and then I could hold on to the tank and go through the gears until I was trying to find somebody to weld a fuel tank. Well, two things. One, finding somebody that can weld aluminum and do it right is hard. To find somebody to weld on a fuel tank is even harder because nobody wants to blow themselves up. So I rode around all day, you know, all around Sacramento trying to find somebody to weld this up, and I thought, gosh, who would be crazy enough to weld on a fuel tank? And one name came to mind, and it was Duke McMillan. So I called Duke up, and he was working in his muffler shop. He says, well, I'll be home at 5:30. He says, just bring the tank over, and brought the tank over, and we washed it out as good as we could. He filled it up with argon and welded the tank up, and it didn't leak fuel anymore. Took it over to Ed's, and we bolted it into the car and loaded it on the truck. And then the other cool thing was they had 3 people in the cab of the truck, so they let me fly up. So I'm thinking, man, I went to big time all in one race. I am flying to the race, and my crew is taking the car there. So this is too cool. So they picked me up at SeaTac Airport, and we go up to, that's when the Dirt Cup was a 3-race series, and opening night was at Skagit. So we go to Skagit, and it's a bigger track than I had been racing on. West Capitol was kind of short quarter mile, and really sticky and fast, but it was short. So this had nice long corners on it, and man, there were some guys with sprint cars that were from the Northwest. You've probably heard of some of these guys. Ross Fondies was one of them. Ross, I think he won the first Dirt Cup. And then Gary Patterson won the second one. Dick Wilski had a beautiful race car. Man, he was fast. He was so fast, he gave the racing gene to his daughter, and she won races and championships. There was Jerry Day. I got a Jerry Day story. I actually talked to Jerry this afternoon, and he said he came and did this a year ago or 2 years ago. Said he had a blast, but he had a back injury, or he has a back injury from a former race car injury, and he decided to go salmon fishing last weekend for a couple of days. Thought that would be real fun, and he got home and his back was hurting, and the doctor says, you know, that is the worst thing you could have done for your back. So he wasn't able to make it tonight, but I got a Jerry's Day story for later on. But we raced at Skagit the first night. Man, it was just the coolest racetrack. It was sticky, had a big cushion on it. The next night we went to Sky Valley. It was a little more like West Capitol, tight corners and kind of short. And we had won. I forget how we ran the first time. I think we were in the top 5. And then at Sky Valley, we won the B main and transferred to the A main. I think we were in the top 5. So we made good points. So at the end of the deal, we come here to Elma. Well, Elma was the first time I'd ever been on a half-mile racetrack. And I went out in the hot laps. I went, wow, this is what it's all about. This is really cool. So I went out and came in from the first round of hot laps and pulled up to Ed Watson, my car owner, and said, hey Ed, can I go back out? And he just says, yeah, go ahead kid, go on back out there. So I think I ran every round of hot laps they had that day. And that day, Don McLeod was driving Rebel Jackson's car, and they broke something in hot laps, and he jumped in another car, and it was a Ram, a Jerry Day cross spring front car, and he went out and won the feature that day. So after the feature was over, everybody's standing around, and somebody came over and they go, hey Sills, you won. I go, I didn't win anything. Oh, they broke the top 5. They go, no, you won the points. You won the dirt cup. And I went, holy shit, I won the dirt cup? So, and actually Wayne Sue should have won, but he had to go home on Saturday night because he was racing for points at Capitol, and he went home, and so that disqualified him from winning the championship. So, thanks Wayne for that. That was good. My second trip, we came back up here, and you know, the first time up here, with our super modified, I kind of felt like I brought a knife to a gunfight. You know, man, there was all these sprint cars up here. Man, everybody was fast. So the next year, I was driving for Big Bob Davis, and he had a Lloyd sprint car, which came from Pennsylvania, and that thing was fast. So we come to Elma at the end of the 3 days, and we're leading the points. So, man, all we got to do is run pretty good that day, and we're gonna win this again. Well, Gary Patterson started on the front row, and he was driving Walt Ross's car, and Gary caused a false start, which of course causes a pile up. And so I dove to the infield, and as I went up over the infield, the car landed on the right rear. Well, you know what happens then. It usually tips over. So I tipped over, and my car owner, he had hands that were like this big. He went over there with rodeo chutes in the infield. He went over and ripped a 2x6 off the rodeo chute and went over and he slung that thing at Gary Patterson, and he missed Gary and almost took off Ron Simmons' head, who was married to my wife Cheryl at the time. And he hit, luckily he had cages on there because the board hit the cage and kind of ricocheted off, and Ron Simmons, he lived to race another day, but that was fun. Actually, I think that day, or it might have been another race after that, Fred Brownfield crashed out of the joint, and I think he went out of turn 3. He had a big monumental crash, and I think that's why when Fred took over this racetrack, he moved turn 3 to another spot. He just didn't like it where it was. The third trip I made up here was with Duke McMillan, the guy that welded up my fuel tank for me. And Duke had a still is that way. In California, you could go 55 miles an hour if you were towing a trailer, but you could go 65 if you had a 2-axle truck. So they all had car haulers, and you just drove the car up on the truck and you could go 65, which means you can go 75 or 80, not get as big a ticket. So we come up, and it was me and Duke and John Boy, John Boy was, he owned JB Enterprises. He built sprint cars for a while, a lot of sprint car parts. So it was us three in the truck, and John Boy showed us, he had done this before with Randy Baldrini. He laid down on the bed of the truck because where the ramp bolted on to the side of the flatbed truck, it would hold you on and keep you from rolling out into the highway. And you could lay in a sleeping bag and get some sleep back there. So we thought he was really crazy. Well, we knew he was crazy. But pretty soon before it was over, we left here and went over, actually to your hometown into Coeur d'Alene, and going over that hill. It was so cold in that sleeping bag out there. Man, you just couldn't get anywhere near the zipper, and you were frozen. Then we get down into Coeur d'Alene, and I feel a vibration underneath me, and I look out over the ramp, and I see the wheels are loose, the lug nuts are loose, it's all watered out, and the wheels are wobbling. We're about to lose the wheels. So luckily we were in town, and they couldn't hear me back there because I was screaming for my life, because I knew if them wheels went, I was going next. So finally we come to a stoplight, and I jumped out and I ran up to the cab and knocked on the door, and I went, hey, we got a problem back here. So having somebody there to monitor the wheels was a help. Later on in that trip, we went into Lincoln, Nebraska to Don Maxwell's shop, and Don Maxwell had built the sprint car we were racing then. And so on the way into Lincoln, Nebraska, the truck lost fuel pump. Well, Duke McMillan, in his vast knowledge of how things work, he got out and he could get on the side. There was toolboxes and places to put fuel cans on the bed of the truck. So he got in one of those cubbies, and he blew air into the gas opening and pressurized the gas tank and blew us the rest of the way into Lincoln, Nebraska. We put a fuel pump on it, we're good to go. So we go to Don Maxwell's shop, and he says, okay, where are you guys going? So, well, we're going down to Sedalia. It's an IMCA race. They run non-lane in the afternoon at the Sedalia State Fair, and then that night, put wings on. He says, hey, I got some tires somebody gave me. He says, they're Goodyear rain tires. He says, I think that's what you're going to need there during the daytime. And actually, it did. We won the day race, but we were out of room in our tire rack, so we had to tie these. There was 3 tires. There was a front tire and both rears. So we tied them on to our existing tire rack, and Duke decided it's time that he's going to get some sleep there in the back. So he gets back there in the sleeping bag, and me and John Boy, we take off, and I think we're going down I-35 down towards Kansas City. We got the radio cranked up and the windows up and the heater on, and somewhere down that road, the tires came untied. Well, they fell down on top of Duke, and so he was able to gather all the tires up. One, we had it right front, and it had a rope through it. It was out skipping around on the highway, and he was able to reel that in. So he got all the tires in, but now he had no place to sleep. So he climbed over the car and went along the outside of the tire rack and started knocking on the window. We're going 70 miles an hour down the road and listening to some rock and roll music, and all of a sudden somebody's knocking on the door. Scared the hell out of us. So we looked to see it was Duke. And so So anyway, we got him back in the truck. And, oh yeah, another thing with that truck, the power steering pump went out. And you guys, some of the best stories are traveling stories, just getting your race car to the racetrack. So power steering went out on it. It was a Ford truck, and so it was really hard to steer. And the thing, we were at a race one time, and somebody gave us a case of STP, so we put STP in the steering pump, and it ran out slower, but it still didn't have as good as assist. And we ended up wearing out the steering column because of the bushing in the top of the column. We were pulling on it so hard to steer it would grab hold of the shifter and it would sling it over into park if you were making a left-hand turn. And so it was a two-man operation to make a left-hand turn, because one guy had to hold the shifter to keep it from going into park, and the other guy, it was two hands to turn it. So if you pull into town, and Elma, the guy next to you, and he'd wake up and go, make a left turn. So, okay, so he'd wake up, hold on to the shifter, and make a left turn, and then he could go back to sleep. So anyway, that was some of the things we had with that truck, and so getting back to the Elma race here, we go out to Hot Lap, and that half mile here was so much fun when it was wet and heavy. Man, you could just fly around this place, and it was the best. So Jerry Day, he's out there, we're running under the track record because the track is so good, and so then it's time to fly, and Jerry, it was first come, first serve. So Jerry, he pushes up to get the first car out, so he gets the best. Everybody knows how important a good qualifying number is. So he gets up there, and as he walks by, he notices we aren't doing anything. We're just sitting there eating ice cream. He says, "Hey, you guys, you better get out there." Yeah, we'll make it out. We'll get out there later. Well, we had a team meeting, and we decided, because the race was only paying $500 to win. It was a WRA race. It was an afternoon race, and they inverted the whole field. We didn't really want to start dead last on the afternoon to try and win $500. So we just sat there and ate ice cream while Jerry went out there, and he was quick time. So finally we went out dead last, and I even drove it up into the loose stuff and throw big clouds of dust and made it look pretty. And I was still faster than I think 3 cars. So we start the second row outside. Jerry's car broke in the heat race, and so he couldn't race. So he decided he would go on the back straightaway into turn 3, and he'd give me signals. So the green flag drops, I get the lead, and he's giving me signals, and getting a big lead. Pretty soon he's like this, and I go, man, I got it covered. So then when I get to the lap cars, I just play around. I get up in the shit and throw some roost and just have some fun. And finally, I was coming out of turn 2, and I'm up in the shit, and I'm spinning the tires and sideways, and I look down, and somebody's nose pokes underneath me, and I went, uh-oh, that ain't no lapper. So I gas it, and I get away from him. I get to the end of the back straightaway, and there's Jerry Day just laughing his ass off with his hands like this. So we ended up winning the race, he figured that sandbagging probably wasn't a bad deal that day. Of all the dirt cups that I won, probably the most satisfying was in 1980. Came up here and I was driving for Joel McRae, and Joel was not the easiest guy to drive for in the world. And he had Duke McMillan. Me and Duke been together through a lot of different car owners and deals, and so Duke was my mechanic. And at that time, to qualify for the Saturday night show, they took the top 2 out of each heat race, and that put you in the A main on Saturday night. Well, we broke a rear end in the heat race, so we were out of the show. And we won the preliminary, the feature that night, and we won the non-qualifiers race that night, which put us in the C main on Saturday. So we go out in the C main, and the track is greasy, and we have to start in the back, and all I could get to was third, and they only took 2, because the track was just greasy, it was hard to pass, you know, going through tear-offs. Joe Hill happened to have motor trouble when he went to push off with the B main, and that bumped me into the B main, into the back. And Joel, he's pissed because we didn't make the transfer, and he's saying, "Oh, you need to put more gear in that thing." Well, we didn't need more gear. It was already revving because it was spinning the tires. We needed to hook it up. So we got it hooked up and figured the thing out. Won the B main and got to the A main and got up to Gary Patterson was leading, and they had a restart with 2 laps to go. And Skagit used to be, if the track sat for a long yellow flag, the moisture would lay down on the racetrack, and the middle groove would be really good for about 1 lap. And it was just enough to put a slide job of old GP on the restart. And so we won the race, coming from the C main, and I ended up getting fired 2 weeks later at Chico because me and Jimmy Boyd, who you guys all seen Jimmy Boyd race, couldn't be a nicer guy in the world, and we were good friends, and we got in a tangle at Chico, had to go to the back of the pack. Well, in the tangle, it tore a brake line off my car, so I had to come back through the pack, and I think we ended up third still with no brakes, and I got fired because I didn't spin Jimmy Boyd back out, or didn't go over and punch him after the races, so that all worked out for the best, I'm sure. Nobody's yawning yet? I got more stories yet. All right. Towards the end of my dirt cups, we were talking about it earlier. I was really good at winning the preliminary night, but I wasn't able to pick up that last night. And so one of the last times I was up here, at Skagit, I was driving a black 14 car for Bobby Johnson, I think was his name. And we started like third row of the feature. Randy Tyner was running a car for Rod Favre, and it was a 4-coil car. Me and Randy have some bad history. We have been to a lot of racetracks where things just didn't work out for either one of us. And so I got, well, I'm gonna get to Randy again after this, it's gonna be tough. So we go into turn 1, and he's got his hands full. He's not good. And so he runs in down in the middle of the racetrack and down the straightaway and gives me enough room where I'm just beside him. And right when it's time to turn, he decides to run into me. Well, it knocks me up over the cushion, but I get away from him, and I go, son of a bitch, I owe him one. So we ran around there for a few laps, and sure enough, come up to lap, and he's racing with Bob Walker and another guy from Arizona, and they're all trying to wreck each other, but they can't get it done until I got there. We go down into turn 1, and Randy goes into the middle of the track, and Skagit used to be, if you miss the cushion or you miss the bottom, you were junk, because there was nothing to get a hold of in the middle. So he was sitting in the middle, and he was hung out, and he was just a little bit sideways. So it didn't take much to kind of turn him around down into the other 2 guys. And so I I see him go, he's spinning down in there. And so I go around and I see the red light comes on about time I get to turn 3. So I pull around and I stop at about the flag stand, and I look down there, and all 3 of them are upside down. And I told myself, well, that worked out nicely, didn't it? And so after the races, I'm standing there in the pits, and here comes Bob Walker walking across the pits. And he looks like he's pissed. And he's a big guy, so I don't really want him pissed at me. And he comes up there, just as he gets there, he puts his hand out and he shakes my hand. He goes, I was trying to do that for the last 10 laps. Says, you got there and you took care of all of us in one thing. So, that worked out well. Another thing that happened at the schedule, we're talking about your qualifying number is always real important. And they used to they did it kind of different. I remember we went out and wheel pack, and then they had a break and had the driver's meeting. And so after the driver's meeting, they would drop for the qualifying. Well, when we went out to wheel pack, the whole bottom half of the racetrack was just soup. It was just slick, snotty mud. So I'm thinking, man, a guy can really get a bad qualifying number and be in trouble tonight. So after the driver's meeting, the guy that's taking care of getting everybody's bill drawn done, he's standing there and he's got a coffee can and a bag and a clipboard. And he's trying to hold on to all these things. Well, you reach in the bag and you pull out your bill, and then he would read the bill and write your car number on the clipboard, and then he put the bill in the coffee can. So he does this a couple of times, and I go, oh man, I said, you got a lot of jobs here. I says, let me help you out. And he goes, oh, thanks, would you? And I go, yeah, I'll take that bag. I'll take care of the bag. So I get in the bag and I pull me out at like a 73. And then I go, okay, 73 for car number, whatever I was driving that night. Brent King, he's standing there. He gets like 76. Tim Green, he's 3. And Tim's looking at us, he goes, man, and the night before, the early numbers were good because the track got rough later. And he goes, man, so last night the early numbers were good, you guys are going to be screwed up. I go, oh yeah, I don't think so. So then we go out to hot lap. Well, they kind of let you hot lap. They didn't keep you in groups. You kind of just, whoever lined up there, they'd send 10 cars or so out there to hot lap. So me and Brent made sure we were in the last round of hot laps. And right at the end, they might even throw the checker. We even drove down into where it was really greasy and spun our tires for a whole lap, throwing all that shit up across the racetrack. Matter of fact, Tim was in that round of hot laps too, and we even covered him up with mud going by doing it. So Tim went out there, third car out. Man, he's spinning the tires all the way around the racetrack. He was about 15th quick, and so he wasn't very happy with us that night. And me and Tim, we've had some things too. He's my brother-in-law. He's married to my sister Marcy, and it seemed like we always ended up in the same heat race, no matter where we were. I mean, we could be at Devil's Bowl or Knoxville, or we were at San Jose one night, and we're in the same heat race. And I'm running 4th, and he's running 5th. So he needs that last transfer spot. So he's dive bombing me, and he's sliding up there, but he's giving me room to drive off the corner. Till finally, maybe the white flag is getting close to the end. He figures he's running out of time, and he's going to have to take it one step further. So he slides up there, plows me in the side, and I flip my ass. So I get out of the car and I'm pissed. and I'm walking back to the pits, and he's sitting there, and so as I'm walking by, I'm giving him my opinion of how his driving affected my night. And as I'm walking, I get more adamant and maybe a little more personal, you know, telling him he's a no-driving son of a bitch, and he should get out of that car. And by now I'm getting towards the back of the car, and I see, all of a sudden I see the shoulder harnesses come flying out of both sides, and I went, well, I think I've said quite enough here, and headed on back to my pits. But yeah, and being a family, you know, my mom would say every Christmas, you know, can't you guys just get along? And but yeah, it's there's a lot of things happen in racing. You know, you guys are really fortunate up here in the Northwest. You got a lot of good promoters, and that's what it takes, especially now. You know, racing's struggling all over the country. Car counts, you know, people in the grandstands. You got some great guys. You know, George Wade over there, and you know, George is Canadian. He likes pavement, and he likes stock cars. But we still love you, George. He works hard, you know, he helps organize events like this and promoters workshops, and really does a good job. Also, Steve Byler, man, he's promoter of the year. Seems like every time I go to Chili, though, and they're announcing the big guys, he's won something and been selected for something else, and so he's done a great job, and you know, and I watched Steve race the Outlaws for years, and he did that on his own, and now everybody's got 4 or 5 guys in their crew. Steve was by himself, you know, and he drove the hauler, worked on the car, drove the race car, washed it afterwards, so I know he's not afraid to get his hands dirty and afraid of some good hard work. So he deserves all the accolades he's got. Jim Raper, who started Skagit, the Dirt Cup, man, what a guy. And I just remember Jim always wore the white pants, you know, like way back in the old days, everybody had to wear white pants in the pits, and you know, and he always had, he got it, you know, he knew that if he had a good racetrack and good track conditions, that people would want to come and race his track. And when they came to race his track, they were going to put on a good show, because they were having a good time driving around there, and he knew about, you know, man, he could make a good cushion. And that guy, I don't know if you guys, many remember, but he used to have like a 1-inch water hose on each end of the racetrack, and he didn't trust a nozzle on the end of that hose. He used his thumb, and that thumb would dial in there, and he would water those corners, and man, that track would be perfect. You know, and I always knew that I wanted to do everything I could to make Jim Raper happy. You know, if he told me it was time to go out and wheel pack, I was going to go wheel pack. He told me that the pit meeting was at 5, I was going to be there 10 minutes early. Because I knew that guy ever got a hold of you with that thumb, you were going down. But man, he was a great promoter, and man, he had a great facility, and did a lot. Fred Brownfield, man, who doesn't miss Fred Brownfield? You know, he took a track, you know, we all like that half mile, but he took a track that was more raceable, it was easier on engines, it put on a good show, and he didn't actually turn the racetrack because he didn't like turn 3. He did it because he wanted the sun to go down behind the grandstand so people wouldn't be sitting there with the sun in their eyes. He thought of everything. you know, his concession stands. He had good food at the concession stands. He really got it. And he worked the racetrack. You know, if anybody wants to really see some good racing, go to the Chili Bowl. And he went to the Chili Bowl and he watched how they did. And he bought a shillelagh that chews up the dirt, and he would make the groove come in. Like if the top was too fast, he would go out there and dig up the bottom or water the bottom to get 2 grooves in the racetrack. And he was really good at that. When I brought my 2-seater up here, he liked the 2-seater because he knew that people from the grandstands could actually get on the racetrack and see what it's like to be out there in a race car. And so they would get out of that 2-seater and they would go back up at the grandstands and they would take that energy with them, you know, and spread it around the grandstands and just get everybody fired up about the whole sport. Oh, yeah, that was a good place to ride, yeah. Oh, another one up here is Portland. We only got to run there once, but I remember Portland, I think about the first 5 rides I ran, I never lifted off throttle. I mean, it was wide open, fat. And I remember I had one woman in the back, and I could hear her screaming down the straightaway. In the corner, the motor would kind of lug down and make a little more noise, but I could hear her screaming out there. That was really a great track. You know, and Fred, he called me up every year, you know, make sure I was going to do Speed Week, and so one night, Fred had Skagit for the dirt cap one year, and he says, bring your car up there. So I go up, and he was going to let me get like 3 or 4 rides between qualifying and getting their heat race lineups. So he says, all right, get everybody lined up there, you know, get your riders in the infield so we can push off from the infield. Well, there was 2 cute Asian girls, and I don't know if they could speak English. I knew they could understand it because when I said to them one time before their ride, they were like the second and third people to get a ride. Well, the first ride, I went out there, ran around, and as I was pulling into the pits, the bracket on the left front brake broke off, and so I spun the caliper around, tore the brake line off, and as I came into the pits, you know, if anybody has ever been in the race car and you lose pedal, it's usually, if you push on it again, it's just going to pump the fluid out. So don't do it. Well, I had to. I pumped it. I thought maybe there's a little, well, no, it sprayed brake fluid all over the headers, and I lit the brake fluid on fire. So I pulled up to these 2 girls, and I got out and I go, I got no brakes, but as soon as we get the fire out, we'll give you a ride. And I knew by the terror in their eyes, they could understand what I was saying. And so they ended up getting their ride. Oh, and you know what better place to have trouble than in the pits? You got all these guys that are there to fix shit. And so they came over and they go, nobody had a cap to cap off the brake line, but somebody came over with a pair of vice grips and they folded the steel braided flex line and clamped onto it with vice grip, and it held enough pressure. I think I might have ridden the whole night like that. But yeah, we got through like that. Then here one night, Fred says, all right, I says, can I run after the races are over? And he says, okay. He says, we want to make sure everybody's down from the grandstand so we don't have anybody crossing the track. And he says, I'll give you an hour. I says, cool. So I had a guy helping me. His name was Porky Hughes. And Porky, I think we had 13 uniforms. So we had 13 people lined up with uniforms on. and I think we had like 6 helmets. So we had 6 of them with helmets on. So we could come off the racetrack and he could get a person out and get another person in and get pushed off. And I don't know what Fred was selling in the grandstands for alcohol, but it must have been some good stuff. Most of my riders were toast. And so this one lady, she'd had a few drinks, and she was about this tall, and she was kind of wide. And so we get her. Oh, Pat tells everybody, says, okay, says, now get your helmets on and do your strap up. Now, does everybody know how to do the strap? And her husband was with her. He says, yeah. He says, I can do that. So he put the strap through the D-ring and pulled it through and tied it in a knot. Well, the problem was she was really claustrophobic. And, you know, when you get in those cars, you feel really tied in. I know sometimes in a midget, I got in, and I've had to open my shield and kind of look out at the horizon, take some deep breaths, because you really feel tied in. And so that's how she felt. So, and we had a steering wheel that we used to put on so the passenger could steer and feel like they had something to hold on to and feel like they were driving it. And so some people were too big to get the steering wheel on. Well, Pat tried to get the wheel on, he couldn't. Then he pulled the shoulder harnesses tight and it pulled her stomach in enough where he could get the steering wheel on. So he says, and she was kind of panicking, and so he says, okay, just flip your shield up, you know, and you feel like you're out in the open. And he says, just put it down, you know, when you get out on the racetrack, keep the dirt out of your eyes. So the push truck comes up, push truck hits me in the bumper, that shield fell right down. He said that shield wasn't down a 1/10 of a second, and it was fogged up because she was breathing hard. So we go out, we do our laps, and as I'm coming off the track, I can hear her screaming. And it's not that good scream that I've heard before. It's a scary scream. So we pull up, and it was a World of Outlaw race, and one of the outlaw officials, he was kind of watching us push off, and he hears her scream, and he goes, oh, she got a good ride. And I go, oh no, this is not that scream. I go, Porky, you gotta get her out of there. So he panics, he goes over, and he tries to take the steering wheel off, which would be the first thing. Oh, no. First thing he does, he tries to take the helmet off, because then she would feel, well, let's tighten the knot. So he thinks, well, I'll just pop the seatbelts loose, and then she won't feel so tied in. Well, he pops the seatbelts loose. Now her belly blows out to get to the steering wheel, can't get the steering wheel. And we can't get her out unless we have the steering wheel on. So, Porky, he had seen people saddle a horse before where you kind of knee him to get that extra little tug on that girth strap. Well, he gave her a big elbow in the side and jerked on the steering wheel at the same time, and it popped off. So now she's freed up, so we grabbed her, we lifted her out, and it was like a cork. All of a sudden, she popped loose out of there, and we all fell on the ground and rolled around in the dirt together. And so that was one of the things that happened. You know, I had another guy that was helping me, and his name was Johnny Medina, and we called him Chewy. And Chewy used to help Sammy Swindell years ago, and he'd been around racing a lot. So he changed my passenger as well. He was coming out to help me one year, and his daughter had gotten in trouble. And so he called me up, and he says, you know, Sarah's in trouble here at home. He says, for punishment, I'm going to make her come with us. I said, okay, yeah, no problem. We had enough room in the truck, you know, in the back, and we came up. That was the last thing from a punishment for her. She had the time of her life. Roger Crockett, he was winning a lot of the races then, you know, and Roger looked like a little kid, you know, he looked like more her age. So she was kind of hanging around Roger, and Roger was standing behind the trailer one night, and Chewie looks out there at Roger and he says, "You better keep that rocket in your pocket, Crockett." So, all right, well, I'm about out of stories. We should probably get on with everything else. We got some great guys here that are being inducted tonight, and I know they earned it, and it's great. A great night for them to know that all the people around them appreciated the work and the good racing that they did, and my congratulations go out to all of you, and thanks George and Rick and everybody for having me up here. It was been a lot of fun, and maybe we'll do it again sometime. I'll have more stories.
All right, thank you, Jimmy, and absolutely wonderful to have the legendary Jimmy Sills here with us tonight. And Jimmy, thank you once again. It's time to start introducing our 2018 inductees into the Elma Auto Racing Hall of Fame. This is my second year emceeing this ceremony for the folks here, and it's been a lot of fun. I did not grow up coming to the races here at Elma. I was up at Skagit and other tracks out east. And I didn't see this track until I was 16 back in 2000. I didn't know much about the history of racing here in Elma, but over the years I got to learn a little bit. But starting these interview with our inductees from 2017 here, I got to learn an awful lot about the history around here, and a lot of these folks here put their heart and soul into racing, and they played an influence on many of the people who are in this room tonight. And most of us are here because of something that was connected to these inductees here, and it was absolutely a wonderful experience talking with each of these folks. So here we go. First of 6 inductees here tonight. Our first 2018 inductee was one of the most versatile racers to ever compete at the Elma racetrack and around the Pacific Northwest, winning track championships in 4 different classes. He didn't think much about accomplishments, however, as he just liked racing and was out to be the best he could be, both at the track and in the shop at home. Also, despite winning races and championships, he never really got used to speaking in front of people, whether it be on the front stretch after a dash or main event win, or at a banquet getting a championship trophy. We'll see how he does here tonight. His father, Dan Sr., had previously raced out in the old Elma half mile, and the son got interested in racing when he was in grade school. He picked up a book or 2 on the subject and eventually got into karts. After some time in those, he came to Elma and began racing in the bomber division back in 1987. Back in those days, endurance races were common in the bomber class. They would often run 100 laps in one direction and 100 laps going the other direction. In just his second season in 1988, he won his first track championship at the Elma Speedway, claiming the bomber title a year after Don Warren, one of his favorite rivals at the time, did the same. He always wanted to improve as a racer. After that bomber championship, he quickly moved to the street stocks and then super stocks. The wins and the championships kept coming. Another 3 of them coming in the super stock division in 1990, 1994, and in 1996, while competing often with friend and rival Dan Daniel and also future sprint car champion Jay Cole. Always willing to try something different, he even got into a sprint car a few times, driving a backup car for Stormy Glick. Like many of us here in this room, he was also friends with the late Fred Brownfield, who became the promoter of Grace Harbor Raceway in 1998. With Brownfield at the helm came some changes, including the introduction of a modified division in Elma in 1999. Adding to his versatility as a racer, he was one of the first drivers to race in the modifieds regularly here at Elma, and ended up winning the inaugural modified championship that 1999 season. While I didn't think about his accomplishments that much, that was one championship he was very proud of. And while he was racing modifieds on the dirt, he also did some late model racing on the asphalt, hitting tracks such as South Sound Speedway and the old Spanaway Speedway. While in the modifieds, he greatly enjoyed racing with the likes of Glenn Vincent and Scott Miller. And while in late models, he really admired Tom Sweatman, who ironically now races modifieds and is the track champion here at Elma. Brownfield introduced the Focus Midget Division to the Pacific Northwest in the mid-2000s. Although there were only a few cars that first year or two, it quickly grew after that. One of the first drivers to get into one of those midgets was Don Billings, who was a crewman for this inductee during the 1990s. Don Billings, in turn, decided to put this inductee into a midget as well. Almost 2 decades after winning his first title at Elma, he had one more M as he won the 2007 track championship in the Focus Midgets. To this MC's knowledge, including karts, he raced in at least 8 different classes of race cars, including 6 at Grace Harbor Raceway, winning 6 total track championships in 4 of them. Having raced in so many different cars, he could perhaps be called a local Elma version of A.J. Foyt or Tony Stewart. Again, not liking to talk much. He says he just likes racing and is happy he was lucky enough to do what he loved to do for as long as he did, and loved racing with some of the very best out there. He just did his best to win each night and had great admiration and respect for some who really put in the time and effort, the Tom Sweatmans and Jay Coles of the world. That being said, there are many people out there and in this room tonight who have great respect and admiration for this man who achieved so much success in racing in many different forms over the better part of 3 decades. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming this first 2018 inductee into the Elma Auto Racing Hall of Fame, Mr. Versatility, Dan West Jr.
Seals, I'll tell you. Bear with me here, this is not my strong point. Thank you, Andrew. Elma Auto Racing Hall of Fame. This is a great honor to me and my family. I want to begin with giving a little bit of backstory of my racing career. The first memories I have are racing out here at the old half mile. And as most of you know, it was dry, slick, and fun to watch. I mean, as a kid, I was just running around the old wooden stands, the covered stands, and you know, it was different racing on Sundays. But it was always fun to watch the cars coming off turn 4 because the dust was just flying at all times. After graduating high school in 1987, I bought my first race car. It was a 1965 Chevelle. I bought it for $50. Had no motor or training, but did have a roll cage. I was pretty excited at that point in time, but Dad found a donor, 1970 Impala, for our power plant, and we were off to the races. So this was in '87. I think we got the car out on the track at the end of the season. So then come 1988, this was a claiming class. So I think the second race in the 1988 season, the car had gotten claimed for $400. And so when somebody claims your car, you have, I don't don't remember what the time frame was, but you had a few minutes to go buy another car. So in that season, I bought 4 different cars. So it was crazy because you would show up at the track, and if you won your main event, and then somebody come up and tell you the car's sold. So then there you are going hunting or garage sailing for another car. So many times I went home with different cars that we arrived with, but fortunately we were able to win the track championship that year. I've had the pleasure of, I've had the pleasure of racing many classes at Grace Harbor Raceway. This includes bombers, street stocks, super stocks, modifieds, Ford Focus midgets, and a short stint in a sprint car. All these years of racing have brought incredible memories and people to my life. The highs and the lows have brought great joy and taught me valuable lessons. One valuable lesson is always be humble. And I got a little story behind that. Mr. Valencia and I had a moment. So pretty embarrassing for me, but I'll tell it to you guys. So there's a few people that know it. I was getting my awards trophy presentation down the front straightaway. I think it was after a main event. And Bob comes up to me, I was getting in the car, and he says, why don't you get on it for the fans? And so I thought, well, yeah, that sounds fun. So, you exit on the back straightaway, so I got turns 1 and 2 that I can gas it up. And it's old Ken Woodall's number 11 car. A lot of you guys remember that car. Had a healthy 406 in it with 180-degree headers, and it sounded pretty good. It ran real good, actually. And so I jump in the car, no seatbelts, no helmet, and proceed to enter turn 1. I gas her up, and I got her sideways, and as I'm coming off turn 2, I realized I didn't latch the steering wheel. So now the steering wheel's in my lap, and I couldn't really pull a Kyle Larson and hang it out the window at that point in time. So the only thing I could do was jam on the brakes and lock it up. And of course the engine stalled, and I slapped the wall. I don't think I let Mr. Valencia down because the crowd was going crazy. Fortunately, the car still ran, or I could still drive it off the track, so I tailed between my legs, fired off, and proceeded in the pits. So that's my embarrassment story. I now have the opportunity to pass these lessons down to my son Devin, who also has a passion for racing. My days of being behind the wheel of a race car may be over, but I found a new and greater challenge of racing being a crew chief. I have the privilege, of working side by side with my son, who is now driving a Legend race car in the Columbia River Legends circuit. Last year at the age of 16, Devin earned the track championship at South Sound Speedway and set the record for a number of main event wins in one season. He won 10 out of 14. So of course, none of the success would have ever been possible without the people who worked late nights in the shop and stood with me in the pits. My dad, who is an inductee, my Uncle Jerry West, Gary Robinette, Al Christensen, Ron Hagan, Randy Nicholson, Don Billings, Brandon Daniel, John Erickson, and Neil Durlin. The sponsors, these are the people investing in our team. We all know where we would be without sponsors. Washington Cedar and Supply, Glenn Vincent with Shiprock Beads, Stormy Glick, Whitney Chevrolet, Ron Hagan, who's always been there for us, Brickco, Dale Underwood, Aberdeen Already, Pete Moeller, Logging and Construction, D&D Dyno, Davidson Racing Engines, Jennifer's Styling Salon, Les's Auto Repair, and Gene McCullough from Muffler Magic. Special thanks, my parents, been there since day one, never missed a race. Family and friends that come out to cheer us on. My sons, Devin and Logan. My wife, she has spent countless nights alone while I was working on race cars. At the end of the day, you look back in your life and you reflect on your accomplishments. I have an amazing wife, a son who is following in the family footsteps of racing, and another son that has the same passion for football. Not many people get to live a life doing what they love as a hobby. And last but not least, the Raceway has allowed me to be a part of history, and for that I am truly thankful. Thank you.
Congratulations, Dan. I forgot to mention my opening remarks here. One of the cool things about this deal here tonight, there's something that I missed or made a mistake on. The great thing is here you get to hear from most of these folks tonight and the family of one of our other inductees here. Pretty great deal here. My congrats, Dan. Inductee number 2 tonight. This 2018 inductee of the Elma Auto Racing Hall of Fame. This 2018 induction of the Elma Auto Racing Hall of Fame had an interest and involvement in racing spanning a number of decades and had many roles, including being a fan, a driver, a crew member, an official, and an association president. This gentleman bought his first car when he was just a kid and he liked driving fast. Everyone in his family did, including his father, which no doubt influenced him for better or worse. His need for speed naturally got the attention of local authorities patrolling area roads, and he got written up more than once. Perhaps talked his way out of another situation or two with the cops. He got his first real taste of speed in a legal manner, auto racing, just after he got out of high school. He worked at a gas station near Harrison, Arkansas at the time, and that gas station owner took him and others out to a little dirt track just outside of Harrison. The thrill of dirt track racing naturally got his attention. He eventually came up here to Washington and began working on a friend's car, and one day a Pittman's race was scheduled. He was told to get in the car by that friend, but he was afraid to, as the owner of the car had told him before that he did not want him driving at all. That friend, however, objected to that, noting that the owner was in the grandstands that day and wouldn't see it. So he got in the car. Late in the race, he took the lead coming off of turn 4 and went on to win that Pittman's race. He didn't say how it went over with the car owner, if he ever did find out who it was behind the wheel. Either way, a racing career was started. He would buy a bomber car and race it for a time in Elma. He had a 1964.5 Ford Mustang, and there weren't very many of those in the bomber class at the time, as Chevy Camaros were becoming the most popular cars to use back then. After a short time, he went to the same person who sold him the bomber and bought a Superstock. As rules changed over the years, it ended up being that some hobby stocks and Superstocks could race with each other. He took full advantage of that and got in as much racing as he could. He often ran heat races and main events in both classes with the very same car. There were times when he would finish one race and exit the track, and instead of going to his pit area, he would simply return to the staging area to line up for his heat race or main event in the other division. And throughout his racing career in the bombers and stocks, he always stuck with the Ford Mustangs. He believed he had one of the better pit crews in Elma also back then. He had 2 brothers helping with different jobs on the car, and another pair of friends from a small town in Montana assisting him as well. And he said that they were big guys also. He would come into the pit area with a flat tire under caution, and two of them would be strong enough to lift the car on their own to get the tire changed. While some drivers didn't like wet and rough tracks, this inductee loved wet and sloppy tracks and loathed racing on anything that was dry. He had many great memories from racing, and he noted one particular super stock main event in Elma that went non-stop, as he, Jim Owen, and John Goodwin all raced hard throughout, but never touched each other that whole race. And as they were coming out of turn 4 for the checkered flag, the three of them and another car were virtually side by side with each other, and he, by his own admission, had gone into the turn much too hard and ended up on the very outside of turn 4. Going for the win, he never lifted. He still doesn't know how he managed to not crash, let alone win the main event that night. One year he came agonizingly close to winning a track championship at the Elma Speedway, having led the points from the start of the season. And this was back when the high points man started at the back of the main event. In the season finale, he only needed to finish decently to clinch that championship, but fate stepped in. He got caught up in a crash with another car, costing him the championship. He wound up finishing second in points that night. While he never ended up winning a championship, he was very consistent throughout his career. He was almost always near the top of the standings and finished second in points a number of times. He built his own parts and engines, and he did so for others as well, including our current race director, Steve Llewellyn. And all of this was being done on a dirt floor at home. Demand was high enough that he was known one time to build 3 engines in just 3 weeks. This was also back at a time when things weren't nearly as expensive as they are now. He said his most expensive engine built around that time was about $3,500. In addition to his time behind the wheel, he was also heavily involved in the operations of the Elma Speedway. He was on the board of directors for the Evergreen Auto Racing Association and was also EARA president for a time. He was also involved in the process of hiring a young announcer who would go on to become the longtime and iconic voice of the Grays Harbor Raceway, a man by the name of Phil Martelli. He was also big on anything that would help with safety at the racetrack. He was, and still is, strongly supportive of the once upon a time law of the land that anyone in the pit area was required to wear white pants. Having worked regularly in heavy construction, he took advantage of his job and often borrowed equipment to help with facilities. This included making improvements to the crash wall around the racetrack, this coming after his car one time went almost completely through the gate in the wall in turn 4. Apparently the bolts had not been put back in place on that gate after a horse show that was held previously. Easy there, Tracy. If there was anything that could improve safety for drivers, crews, officials, and fans, he was 100% for it. His son Morgan ended up liking to go fast like his father did, and so does Morgan's mother apparently, probably influenced by his father as well. Morgan now races, and like his father before him, has his family helping crew for him, including his cousin and his son. Needless to say, racing and speed runs in the family. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming this 2018 inductee into the Elma Auto Racing Hall of Fame, Robert Criswell.
I used to be the shyest kid in class. People tell me now that I'm not shy anymore. Actually, I'm pretty good at bullshitting, but I think this is about a lot of good people. I had a lot of good help. Back in the old days, we started watering the track sometimes on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. Sometimes they'd run it all night, water truck. Jim Sotheby ran it, so it finally died. And Brian, his son, is here. Well, the water truck drivers, the grade truck graders. My wife probably should be up there instead of me. She ran the back gate, did the lineups for a lot of years. My daughter also sold programs, was a trophy girl. It was kind of a family deal. My son was my pitman early on. So I came home from work one day and, Dad, you suppose I can build a race car on that old Rambler over there? Well, yeah, go ahead, you've got it out, I'll help you. The rest is history. He's been racing for a lot of years now. My nephew, his father was my pitman for the whole time I raced, I believe. My younger brother was a pitman also for a lot of years. Both of them are not here anymore, so. My pitman, Mario Winkleman, was a pitman. Randy Donahue was one of my pitmen for a long time. He was one of the Montana boys. I think my younger brother was acquainted with his brother. Before it was over, we had 4 of those guys from Montana. We'd go to a bar afterwards, nobody messed with us, and depending on which one you wanted to monkey with, from the littlest up to the one that weighed, I don't know, 350 or so. It was a lot of fun, a lot of work back then, but I enjoyed it. And thanks to Jim White, and I think Jim was the president the previous year, and somehow I got nominated to be president. I believe Jim probably knew what I was getting into, but I didn't. It was a lot of work, but that's what you did because we wanted to keep the track going. As far as running up the hobby stock and the super stocks, I think we were down to 5 supers when that occurred. And it was a dying class, we were losing it. Well, it was a way of bringing it back. We thought it worked. And I got to race twice as much as anybody else did, which was great. Kind of hard on equipment, but it was fun. The modifieds were just coming along as I ended up in the super stock, and I could see the writing on the wall. There was no more of those engines built on the dirt floor at home, no more homemade race cars. That's about the time that I retired along with Dale Underwood. We put about the same time. As far as sponsors, Dale Underwood was a great sponsor. Where did he go? I remember breaking on a Saturday night, and Dale said, well, I'll leave the gate unlocked for you. Go to the wrecking yard, get whatever you need, just lock the gate when you're done. So me and one of my pitmen went and gathered all the parts we needed for the next race, and locked the gate when we left. Craig Green Trucking sponsored us. Bob Bell was one of our sponsors one year. Pioneer on Pioneer in Montesano, which is no longer there. She was a sponsor for the whole time. I did get my racing bug a bit earlier. I lived in Madera, California. And I think I was about 11 years old. And there was a track just down about a half a mile from my house. Saturday night I slipped down there and there was a hole in the fence, a work fence. Sneaked in and watched. I don't know what kind of cars they were, but they were going around fast. And that was kind of the start of it. We got chased out a couple of times, but most of the time they wouldn't bother us. And like was previously said, I did start out with a Mustang after winning the Pitman race. Grisdale Camp Road was my playground. Jim and I share the same area. We live about 5 miles apart, so I think we probably played around on the same roads up there and honing our skills. With that in mind, thank you all. One for everybody that's here and the spectators and family, friends. Thank you very much.
Our next inductee is sadly not with us this evening, being enshrined posthumously as he passed away at only 36 years of age back in 1970, but he is represented by his family here this evening. This gentleman, who was known as a family man personally, was remembered by most of the track as a car owner, having only raced a few times himself. His family say he never quite had the confidence to be a racer, but he still wanted to be involved, and he found it better to have someone else piloting his stocks and later modifieds around the Elma half mile and other Northwest tracks, including SeaTac, Portland, Eugene, Port Angeles, Yakima, Spanaway, Roseburg, Salem, and they even went to Idaho once. He was already into racing and fielding cars before he met his wife Lovina in 1960. After marrying, they moved to the Camp Grisdale. Though it was a logging camp, one walking into the camp, located about 50 miles north of Shelton, would be surprised to find a racing operation based out of that camp. Camp Grisdale turned out to be a hotbed of racing enthusiasts, as one news clip believed to be from the mid-60s noted that at least 3 other cars were either driven, partially owned, or maintained by residents of Camp Grisdale, including Bill Skaggs. Low on the resources for the car, as they had 5 children between them, the family cut cedar and sold it during the winter for money to put into the race car. A driver by the name of Rebel Jackson was piloting the car in the late 1950s into the early 60s and won many races, including the Silverdale Championship race in 1960. A later meeting at Camp Grisdale resulted in Herb Moran piloting the car as the number 33 for a number of years at the track before Bernie Klinkenbeer took over another car for the team, driving it as number 29 here at Elma. Throughout the 1960s, the team was known for their strong consistency and hard work. His wife Lovina often watched from the grandstands, but was still involved for the track, for a time writing up results for the Racing News newspaper that was circulated all around the West Coast. The kids, even at a very young age, were into dad's racing, and it became a family thing to bring everyone to the racetrack. Son Russ ended up becoming dad's right-hand man and helped out at the shop at home. The racing operation was low budget, but the cars were fairly simple as they were generally stock at the time. Lovina, sitting in the stands, knew that whenever she saw one of their crewmen running out to the parking lot with tools in hand, she knew that someone's car was about to be robbed for a part. And it was often her car they went after. A surprise medical problem resulted in this inductee losing his life early in 1970 at a very young age. But he was known for being a kind and caring family man, and he and his family enjoyed being at the races and hanging out with everyone they knew and loved. Though his life was cut short, he had a positive impact on the racing community, and many miss him still to this day. Accepting on his behalf, his wife Lovina and son Russ, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in recognizing this 2018 inductee into the Elma Auto Racing Hall of Fame, Gene Butch Jenkins.
So the fuss was, it's my dad, and so we're gonna kind of put the coat under glass and remember him for it. So, but they talked me into it. I want to thank the right people first. Craig Green, cousin. I think he told me 3 years ago he put Dad's name in each year. Way to go, buddy. Because without him, we would, sooner or later maybe they would figure it out. But he was really instrumental. I appreciate that. The whole family. The board and everybody that does this here. This is amazing. This is our first trip here
this is really amazing that what they've done with this. So we really got into it. We dug out some trophies and some pictures and got everything into it. So when I first heard about this, the first thing I thought of was we hadn't really got to remember Dad this way because he died in 70. You know, I was 12 years old, but it was everything that we did back then was race, and it was really cool. The most I remember about Dad is if you were giving him this award today, he would probably send his driver up to get it. Because he just wasn't a front line. He didn't like to be out there in the public eye much. He loved the drivers doing it. And I do remember that about him. So I thought of what story could I tell? And really the one story that was probably the best of all was we're at Elma on the half mile. I think I'm 10 years old. And does everybody remember the powder puff races? When the women, the wives would get in the cars and do a halftime show, kind of? Well, Dad talks Mom into getting in the car. And as I'm watching, she's about a straightaway behind, mid-pack. These other three moms are mixing it up every lap. The lead is amazing. It's what everybody would love to watch. So as they go by, I'm watching, but the whole crowd's looking over here. And I keep trying to figure out, as I look, my dad is at turn 4, absolutely going bananas. Everything he can throw at her, he's yelling, go. The crowd quit watching the race. They take the white flag, it's a great race. He was the center of attention. So the race finishes, there's kids in the room, so I can't tell you what my mom told him when she took the helmet. I just leave it at that. But it was just a great story because the amount of people that told her what he was doing, of course she could see it, they just couldn't believe it. Of course he was a competitor, remember that. I mean, it was not a driver, but he was a competitor. He really wanted to do it. So our family can't thank you enough. We absolutely love this. This is amazing. We'll be back just to watch, just to see what's going on. So we really appreciate it, and I know my dad will. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Lavina, and congratulations to the Jenkins family. Our next inductee had a driving career that spanned 15 years the first time around. He was contacted by a gentleman by the name of Dale Wade, who brought him out to the final race of the 1981 season at Elma. Seeing the race, he decided he should get into racing himself, and he built a car that winter. He first raced in the hobby stock division in Elma, earning top rookie honors in 1982. After that first year, he bought an old police car from Mason County, minus the engine, and he used that car for the 1983 season, which turned out to be pretty good. He finished second in the points and won the mid-season championship race. And at one point, he swept the program at Elma 3 weeks in a row, winning every time he was out on the track. And this was back when the high points car started at the back of the field for the main event every week. That streak only ended when a block fell out of the car in front of him, damaging his own car and forcing him off. In 1984, he decided to move his number 44 operation over to a super stock and continue racing in that division. But after that, he was forced to scale back his racing activities to an extent when his job as a logger had him move to Clearwater. But he was back racing more regularly by the 1990s, and he made another change as he got into the street stock division at the Elma Speedway. In 1991, he found a good engine and put together a car in which he would have his finest seasons. That 1991 season saw him miss out on a championship by just 10 points. In 1992, he finally came through, capturing his first track championship at Elma in the street stock division. That 1992 season was also his most memorable season on a personal level, as his son Jimmy also won a track championship at Elma that year, claiming the Bomber Division title. He backed up his first title with one more in 1993, staying competitive against the likes of Robert Nutter and future open wheelers Dan West Jr. and Glenn Borden Jr. until he first hung up the fire suit in 1996, though he did come back to wheel a modified for a few shows back in 2006 before stopping for good. In addition to racing at Elma, he also visited some other Northwest racetracks, going to Port Angeles often, and a few times he headed across the mountains to race all the way over in Republic. This inductee was known as Gentleman Jim because of his demeanor and easygoing style. Despite his competitiveness on the track, he had a reputation as a clean racer and earned the respect and admiration of his fellow racers, earning 3 total sportsmanship awards during his career. He and his wife Judy were also involved with the EARA in the 1980s, and in 1984 he served as the president of the Evergreen Auto Racing Association. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming this 2018 inductee into the Auto Racing Hall of Fame, gentleman Jim Owen.
I didn't plan a big speech, so
Everything going good?
that much. Biggest thing I want to do is thank my wife and Ed and Jean Comfort. They were tops. They made it work for me. Seen me long. They sponsored me pretty much the whole career. Like I said, I didn't really plan a speech. Thought I'd wing it. Ran out of words already this time. To be sure. Thanks all my helpers, my sister-in-law. She always did my lettering in the car. Also raced figure 8 race one time. So there's a trophy over in the corner there that she won. She also destroyed the car. I could try to remember all the people that helped me, but I know I forget half of them, so I'm not even going to try. Just thank you, everybody. About it. Thank you.
Our next inductee, first at the racetrack, back for a short period of time, around 1967, at the young age of 17, back when drivers were required to be at least 18 years of age to race at the old Elma half mile. He forged his parents' signatures at the end of the day. He raced with number 16 modified at that first race. He was on his own that day. No sponsors, no crew, no spare tire even. Nearly 2 decades later, in 1986, he returned to Elma, which had recently become a 13th-mile oval. He saw the bomber class that was racing at Elma at the time and decided he wanted that behind the wheel. The bomber class was a claimer class at the time, and he decided to claim the car he had noticed that evening. He proceeded to win the main event the next 5 nights out in that car to close the 1986 season before it was claimed back by the previous driver. After that first car was claimed, he went ahead and built his own bomber. In 1987, just his second year out, he won the Elma Track Championship in the bomber division. After winning that bomber title, he decided to move up and put together a sprint car program. Now with crew and sponsor help from C&B Logging and extra equipment, including that spare tire he never had when he was 17, things were going much better and more smoothly. While becoming a major influence in Elma's sprint car ranks, he racked up several main event wins, and in 1992, he won his first 3-season sprint car championship at Elma and repeated the feat 2 years later. In addition to his time behind the wheel, he promoted the track for a time and was president of the Evergreen Auto Racing Association. He was also at one point on the board for the Grays Harbor County Fairgrounds, where he worked to get the county to be more lenient and accepting of auto racing at the fairgrounds. Being the more the merrier type, he was an advocate for bringing more cars and increased competition and put on better racing for the fans, working to align schedules with other tracks, and even brought down the 410 sprint cars from Skagit to race down here at Elma. Back when the rules for 360 sprint cars were pretty much all over the place before ASCS came along, and drivers often found themselves legal at one track and illegal at another, he advocated adjusting the rules as such to potentially match up with other tracks in the region and allow more cars to race at Elma, and also to allow Elma's regulars to travel elsewhere. While the late Fred Brownfield eventually brought the World of Outlaws to what was then called Elma National Raceway, a little bit of the earlier legwork was done by this inductee. When the Outlaws were visiting Skagit, he met then World of Outlaws star Andy Hillenberg and struck up a conversation and convinced him to make a stop here at Elma to look at the track on his way down to Cottage Grove and get his thoughts on Elma's potential to host the World of Outlaws at some point. Hillenberg saw the track and facility and liked it enough that he then talked to series founder Ted Johnson. In 1996, the stars aligned for Elma National Raceway, and the greatest show on dirt made its debut in Grays Harbor County. After his time in Elma was done, he was given the opportunity to race American Indy cars, what he referred to as the poor man's Indy cars, as they were not current model cars and they were relatively low dollar. He did enjoy it, however, as he got to race for about 4 or 5 years and traveled to places such as Canada and South America. A couple of bad crashes in those cars resulted in doctors telling him they couldn't race anymore and his driving days were over. But while racing those American Indy cars here, he never won a race, but had several podium finishes and several runner-ups. Despite his injuries, costs, and business side of things, he's always had an affection for auto racing and has had many good memories, including one memorable after-race party at a friend's house that saw about 200 people attend and a little mayhem occur. He may or may not share that story here this evening. He also pointed out that a successful racer doesn't do it alone, saying that the real heroes are the sponsors and pit crewmen, for without them, there is nothing. No help fixing or setting up the car, and no money for equipment, including that spare tire. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, in welcoming to the Elma Auto Racing Hall of Fame the 3-time Elma track champion, Don Warren.
Well, about that party, there was a couple hundred people there, and before it was over, most of Jim Boswell's pasture fence had been mowed down by cars that were just kind of trying to get out of there, and it went on to the wee hours. That's all it is. I'm deeply honored to be here this evening. As he told you, I started when I was 17 and on the old half-mile track. After the races were over, we used to go to a little tavern nearby, and I was 17 and the waitress looked at me and said, "I don't think so. You have to leave." And George Wixon, in his kind of jovial way, said, "Well, if he has to leave, we're gonna leave." She changed her mind. Anyway, I learned something about racers that day. Many years later, in 1986, I claimed the bomber. I went to the race site. I hadn't been in years, and I was just sitting there, and I was overwhelmed. Like, oh yeah, really? I can claim one of those for $500? So I did. And I drove it down the highway at midnight. They don't have lights. To my father-in-law's driveway. In the morning, he wanted to know what the wreck was in his driveway. I told him it was my new car. Anyway, I drove it the last 5 races and was successful with it. And the former owner claimed it back for me, so then I thought, well, I'll just build my own. I did. Raced that in '87, we took the championship, and that just made me crave more speed. So I went looking for a sprint car, and our whole team, meaning the pit crew and sponsors, won the 92-94 sprint championships. After that, I raced a few years with the American IndyCar Series. And there's something about racing. It's a team sport. You can't do it successfully by yourself. I learned that the first time out without even a spare tire. The most important team players are your crew, mechanics, and sponsors. And I was fortunate enough to have the best of all. I'm indebted to Dave Lawrence, who was with me right from the beginning in the sprint car. Monty Madsen and George Bosler were there every race, even when we went to Skagit and out of town. And I'm grateful for the sponsorship of CMD Logging, Ed Comfort, and Jim Bosler. And I'm most indebted to Jim Bosler for providing a shop for the car and countless hours of working on the car himself and sponsoring it. What a guy. So without people like these, racing just can't exist the way it is. So I just ask that everyone applaud the crews and the sponsors to make this all possible.
Our final inductee is a third-generation racer who admits to being surprised to gain this honor at the age of 44, even though he had hung up his fire suit several years ago now. He saw his father race as a kid, and he decided he wanted to race also. He ended up spending $600 to buy a bomber and race that for a time before being forced to contend with in the Superstocks. A man named Richard Buffalo later bought a sprint car from Don Fry and decided to put this inductee behind the wheel with assistance from Dave McClendon. And as soon as he was on the track racing sprint cars with his dad ran car number 72 and his son the 67. When his dad retired, the son took over number 72 and raced with it for the rest of his driving days. A modest but still competitive man, he admits to being a little disappointed with his career, knowing that mistakes on his part and some bad luck had cost him some big race wins and even championships over the year. However, he still accomplished much, despite a lack of support at times, and being incredibly busy with his work and his family. And even though he was a regular here at Elma, he did a bit of traveling also for special events, including the Northern Spring Tour here in the Northwest, and also ran the Knoxville 360 Nationals. In 2001, just as his dad was retiring, he won his first sprint car track championship at Grays Harbor Raceway. It was a well-earned title as he won on championship night and did it all in equipment he put together himself. At the time also, he was developing a number of fun rivalries that would last for years, one of them being with Randy Van Acton. One big and sometimes fierce rivalry that involved several championship battles was with several-time track champion and future Hall of Famer J. Cole. They exchanged a number of blows, taking turns winning titles, but they highly respected each other. Additional titles came for the number 72 sprint car in 2003, 2007, and 2009, bringing his total to 4. And there were a few near misses in there also, including the very memorable 4-way championship night showdown in 2008 that involved himself, J. Cole, Sean Rice, and Henry Van Dam. And that was a doozy. I was there that night. He, by his own admission, felt he had more than his share of cold spells and found consistency to be difficult to come by at times, some resulting in those near misses. But most fans here, regulars, knew well enough that on any given night, the 72 sprint car was worth keeping an eye on. And one night, he surprised a number of people when he found himself starting up near the front of the field in an ASCS National Sprint Car main event at Elma at the Fred Brownfield Classic back in 2009. As his kids started racing quarter midgets and eventually cage karts, the time crunch was getting to be much. With too much on his plate, he felt he no longer had the ability to field a sprint car for himself and put in the necessary time to be competitive, electing to retire in 2010 while still in his 30s. It was time to focus on his kids' racing efforts. He was most proud that he was able to accomplish what he did despite being low on resources and support at times. He had worked hard enough with what and who he had helping him, and it resulted in him being one of the most decorated sprint car racers in the history of Grays Harbor Raceway. And now he was hoping to transfer that ability and instinct to his sons and fourth generation racers, Devin and Carson, who already found success in cage kart, and late this past season, Devin himself climbed into a sprint car for the first time. It would surprise no one here if Devin and Carson continued the family legacy on the track at Elma. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming this final 2018 inductee into the Elma Auto Racing Hall of Fame, the one, the only, Jack Gordon Jr.
So I wrote a couple of notes down here, much like Dan West says, this isn't my strong point. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for being here and thank everyone who put their hard work and effort and sponsorship into making this event happen. One thing I'd like to really dedicate is just the people. There was not a lot of people that were with us over the years in my about, 14, 15-year career, but the people that were in and out, I couldn't have done it without them at all. In the beginning, like Alan said, we raced the bomber in street stock class and won a bunch. And my dad had been driving the sprint car at the time and let me drive it when the Skagit guys came down, and Bobby Burrow and some of those guys, and let me drive the car. And I think I was running second or third the first night out. Got black flagged for hitting something too hard in the butt on the restart. We didn't finish the race, but anyhow, that night I put a for sale sign on my street stock, and one of my sponsors would give me a few $100. Dick Tufall owned a local cedar mill here. He came up to me and said, "Why is the car for sale?" And I said, "I can't drive that heavy piece of junk anymore. I want to drive one of those things." So no disrespect to anyone here. It's just big difference in the sprint car. So anyhow, he came up to me about a couple months later, kicked out some money and bought us a car. And from Don Fry, it was a pretty good car. And I just really am thankful for that, to the Dick Tufall and the Hayden family for giving me my first shot in my early 20s to do this. Next thing I want to talk about is my wife. Over the years, about 21 years now, she really wasn't around racing at all, and maybe never had a huge love for it, but she's really been a supporter of me and allowing me to live my dreams both through myself, my career, and through my kids. And when it was time for me to step down, she never pushed me to step down, never said you need to step down to spend time with the kids. She just kind of let me run my own course. George Wade, you don't know how much I appreciated when I had, 3 little kids, and my wife's dragging them up to the races every Saturday night. He'd put them up in the pit, in the boxes up on top, just to make things easier for her, which made things easier for me, which allowed me to keep racing. And George, I appreciate that more than you know.
one thing I want to talk about too is like racing has been my entire life since I've been 16. I was kind of a clumsy kid. I wasn't very good at sports, and you know, I wasn't really good at a whole bunch. But racing, I feel like saved my life. You know, number one, it kept me broke my whole life, so I had to work to pay for everything. So it kept me out of trouble because I never had time to go get in trouble and have any fun because I was always working to pay for the race cars. But one thing I want to say thankful to is my parents for just instilling in me that you can have anything you want as long as you're willing to work for it. And I feel like the one thing that I've got from racing and my parents in life is that if you work hard, you can usually get most of what you want. And I just really appreciate having that backbone from my parents of instilling a hard work ethic in me. So I was about 21, 22, and starting to get we were winning a couple races, and I got to the point, Rod Faber had contacted me to drive his car, and so he drove that for the summer, and didn't do real well at first because he was trying to change the way I was driving, and finally, towards the end of the year, we started getting pretty fast, and things were starting to click pretty good, and then I lost a ride to someone else who brought a bunch of money, so I was like, that's never happening to me again. So I sold what I had, started my business at 23, 24, and just took a year off of racing and thought I'll work myself, but I'm not gonna lose another ride to money. And so unfortunately, by the time I got my business going 6 or 7 years later, had a great wife, couple kids, and it just kind of bogs the whole racing thing down a little bit. But anyhow, no matter how much time, I guess she was always really good about giving me the time it took in the shop. Let's see here next. One thing I want to thank my dad, Glenn. I was racing my car for Kufal, and he was racing, and when I sold my stuff and got the store, he's just like, you can just drive my car, son. And I'm like, no, I'm just gonna do my own deal. He put me in his car one night, and I was leading the race and went out and stuffed it in the fence real hard, and Ben's only new race car he ever had out. But so anyhow, I still think it was that used Hyman we bought at the swap meet on the steering wheel. Anyhow, the next year he just decided to park his car and join forces with me, and we came together, and both of us individually weren't running a very good program. He'd won a race here, I'd win a race there, and that next year we won our first championship at Elma. They said it came down to the last night with Don Fry, was a great competitor. And then from there, I had a few people in and out. I want to mention Art Ditzel, Mike Canavan, Billy St. Paul helped us for a little bit, Donovan Ross, Bruce Wolf helped us the last couple years, helped us get to Knoxville, which was one of my dreams. I was crying when we finally got to get there. But biggest thing is that 90% of the time it was me in the shop and unloading the trailer and washing the stuff up, and I had 3 kids pulling on my leg, and my dad drives a log truck 60, 70 hours a week, and he was there every Saturday morning early helping me work on the car, getting back at 2 in the morning, and then get up, work on his truck all day Sunday, and he did that for years and years for me, and I just want you to know I appreciate that more than anything. I would have never been able to race as long as I did without him, and I just appreciate you more than you know. Let's see here. I got to share a couple things. One thing is, back to my wife, I want to thank her for not going back on our one prenuptial agreement we had before we got married. So I had the business and all this going before we got married, and everyone says, did you get a prenup? Did you get a prenup? I said, yeah, I got a prenup. I said, we had a prenup that if we were married, we would be racing sprint cars. And so she's never went back on that with me. Here recently, she said, that agreement was with me and you, but now you're kids? I thought when you were going to be done, we were going to be able to do something else. So, anyhow, I just really appreciate all the relationships I've had over the years here with so many new people. And when I quit racing, I kind of didn't come to the track a whole bunch because it's so hard. I never really wanted to stop driving. I just got to the point to where I had to choose between helping my kids get better and running 2 mediocre programs just like my dad did with me. So I've elected to work with my kids, and they're turning out to be great race car drivers. So one last story. So Jimmy did such an awesome job telling about funny times. So I'm going to share with you guys one kind of rated PG kind of deal. So we all know Rob Johnson here. He's going to kill me for this, but Rob Johnson raced sprint cars up here for years. And he usually didn't run real well, but he's one of my best friends. And so one race up here, he's finally leading the A main event. Now he's driving the track from the top to the bottom to block anything from getting by, and I think the guy behind him, we won't mention any names on this one, finally just gave him a wheel and sent him flying. Well, they were all pissed off that night, almost a fight in the stands. So anyhow, the next weekend we go up to Skagit. This is a Skagit story. So back when Skagit had all the racing inside the pits, and this particular car that had taken him out and won the main event, those guys go in and they load up. One of Rob's pit guys, he goes over to the back of the trailer and I'm like, Don, what are you doing? Look over there. He's taking a piss in the guy's beer cooler. So anyhow, after the races that night, we're sitting there, we're waving at them, and they're chucking down their beer. And we're like, yeah, you got that one, buddy. So anyhow, I don't know if that compares to Jimmy's story, but that's one of the funniest things that's happened to me in all my years of racing. So anyhow, thanks everyone, and appreciate the honor.
Special awards, the Spoon and Brownfield Awards, and a couple of other special recognitions here. And at this time, I'll turn over the floor to the president of the Elma Auto Racing Hall of Fame, Mr. Rick Lee.
I'd like to thank you for attending tonight. 10 years ago when we started this, I never would have dreamed that we'd have a National Sprint Car Hall of Fame driver as a guest speaker, and that we would have a soon-to-be National Sprint Car Hall of Fame promoter at Grays Harbor Speedway, or Raceway. So at this time, I'd like Steve Leitler to come forward. We'd like to give him some special recognition here. Steve will be, in June, entering the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame for all his driving successes and his promoting successes. He's also just recently been named the RPM Promoter of the Year. I think it was the 42nd Promoter of the Year, presented by RPM. So, Steve Leitler, congratulations on your National Sprint Car Hall of Fame induction and your Promoter of the Year.
Wow, this is really cool. I really appreciate this, and I'll make it quick. I know it's getting late, but thank you to everybody that came out. It's always fun to get together with deals. Growing up, I've been down to race a few times. We did road trips, and always enjoyed coming down. You never dreamed I'd be in charge of the place. I just want to say thank you to everybody, the entire Grays Harbor Raceway community. just welcomed us down here with open arms. It's so much fun. I really am very, very happy that Fun Time Promotions is running Grace Harbor Raceway. It's just really been a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but you know what? The amount of fun we're having is it's worth every bit of it. The passion that I see down here, it's different than Skagit. Skagit's big, it's a business. This is like a community family down here. I really enjoy coming down here and being a part of this. Thank you to everybody here. I don't want to make things individually because I'll forget them. But thank you to everybody, my great staff, everybody from Bert to Slim to Steve, Jack, everybody has just been working like crazy down here. I appreciate everything that you guys have done. One real fast story I'm going to tell you. When I first started racing sprint cars, we always worried about the California guys coming up. I remember this one badass was coming up, his name was Jimmy Sills. And I kind of, checked him out when we got there. This little beanpole, the guy gets out, and he's walking through the pits. And I look at this, I go, that guy's a race car driver? Back in the day, Jimmy Sills had a fro that was this big. I think it looked like a beach ball with hair on it. And it's like, what the? He pulled that helmet up. I'll tell you what, when that man pulled his helmet on and pulled his belts down, look out, because he was one badass racer. Jimmy, it was an honor to get to race with him. I'm glad we're still friends. Thank you guys. I really appreciate this.
Okay, we have two more special awards named after two very influential people here at Grace Harbor Raceway. First one, Larry Spoon, who did more for racing back in the 60s, 70s, early 80s than most people could ever imagine. He helped people out and just did a whole lot. Most of it without people knowing what was going on. There were times when racing was about to end here at the fairgrounds, and if Larry had stepped in, that probably would have been it. When he passed away in the early 80s, the Evergreen Auto Racing Association had an award named after him, and I think it was given out to about the mid-1990s, and then for whatever reason it just disappeared. But when we started the Hall of Fame here, we decided we wanted to reinstitute that award. So each year we give out the Larry Spoon Distinguished Service Award to a very deserving individual who gave a lot during their career, helped others out, and kept racing going here at Grace Harbor Raceway. And for 2018, we would like to recognize Jim Oyen as the Larry Spoon Distinguished Service recipient. So Jim, would you come forward, please, and get your plaque? And our second special award for the night is named after Fred Brownfield. And just about everybody here knows what Fred meant to Grace Harbor Raceway in the late 1990s and the early 2000s until his death. And that was the second year of the Hall of Fame. We instituted the Fred Brownfield Exemplary Contribution Award. Somebody much like the Spoon Award, Fred just gave and gave, and he wanted people to leave the track having felt like they received more than they expected when they came. And so when we look for this award recipient, we look for somebody for 2018, we would like Glenn Gordon Jr. to step forward as Fred Brownfield Exemplary Contribution recipient. Glenn? Come on, guys.
Hey.
So this really blew me away. Fred was one hell of a man, and really great for the sport. Just changed the whole caliber of racing in the Northwest, as far as I'm concerned. When he came around and started getting the track of the NST, I feel like all of us Northwest racers that would just get whipped by all the California guys started racing more, and after a couple years, they just really didn't have a whole bunch on us anymore, and get this awards means a lot. Thank you very much.
I'll turn this back over to Andrew and he can close it out for us, but I do want all the inductees, please come back forward in your jackets, and we're going to move the podium and the table out of the way, have you stand in front of the banner here, and we'll get a group shot of you for the paper and so forth, and so we'll do that in a few minutes, but we'll let Andrew close us out first, and then we'll get the picture. Thanks again for attending, and we really appreciate it.
Okay, folks, on behalf of Rick and the entire staff of the Elma Auto Racing Hall of Fame here, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us this evening here for the 10th edition of this fantastic event that's going every year, and we look forward to doing this again next year. And hope to see you all there.